Welcome to Prop Pops, a tasty morsel from the Prop Gallery's collection. A single, unusual, and rare item, offered for your enjoyment and edification. In this case, it's a musical score, handwritten by film composer James Bernard for the classic 1959 Hammer horror, The Stranglers of Bombay. Now, what makes this really interesting is that Hammer props and any of the production materials are extremely rare and hard to come by. Now, why are Hammer films important? In the 1950s and 60s, Britain's Hammer films became internationally known for a massive output of full-color, high-quality Gothic horror. Uniquely beautiful films, but with a large dose of flesh and blood.
This is true. This is real. This actually happened.
The Stranglers of Bombay is a unique and brutal film from Hammer's brief cycle of historical horror.
The Butchers of Bombay.
A cycle that began with the explosive success of The Camp on Blood Island, a smashing little POW film set in a Japanese prisoner of war camp at the dead end of World War II. Emphasis on dead.
Twice Yamamitsu has told me that he will murder every man, woman, and child on this island if Japan loses the war. Gentlemen, the war is over.
It was the single most successful film Hammer ever made. They had found a new niche to exploit: historical horror. A cycle that included Terror of the Tongs and ended with Rasputin, the Mad Monk, in 1965. It didn't take long for Hammer to find a follow-up to Blood Island. It was in a sinister little novel from 1952 called The Deceivers, about a colonial administrator in the East India Company infiltrating the Thuggee cult and putting it to the torch. But the rights had already been sold. So Hammer created their own story, penned by American screenwriter David Z. Goodman, who eventually wrote the screenplays for Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs and the film Logan's Run. Both were fictionalized tales of a real person, William Henry Sleeman, who was a soldier and an administrator for the East India Company in the early 19th century. Besides being the first person to discover dinosaur bones in the subcontinent, Sleeman eventually found himself chosen to investigate hundreds of disappearances, almost all of them travelers that simply vanished. If you've seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, you have an idea of what the Thuggees were about. You could also check out the film version of The Deceivers with a pre-Bond Pierce Brosnan. Actually, a cool little film from the 1980s. But in real life, the Thuggees were a cult of the Hindu god Kali, the goddess of destruction and renewal. Despite her often frightening depiction, to most followers, Kali represents empowerment and motherly love. But like many cults, the Thuggees perverted this belief. They believed they had a calling to balance the forces of the universe by, well, murder. They would seduce caravans and travelers across India into trusting them.
Oh, honor, great mighty Nawab.
Offering companionship, help, and safety in numbers. Then, in the dark of night, they would silently strangle their victims with sacred garrots, a handkerchief, or a noose. No blood, no muss, no fuss. And of course, they stole all their stuff and buried the bodies in unmarked graves.
Boy, get the spade.
Kill.
To the thugs, it was a spiritual act with strict rules. Brahmins, the highest caste in India, were not to be touched. Ditto for women.
We cannot do the work of the Great Mother unless you can enter the caravan.
And they were highly organized, with each member having a specific function. This scene from Stranglers shows one young thug being coached on how to charm himself into a caravan of unwary travelers.
Oh, traveler. Oh, I'm fearful. Look at me. Do not send me off to tread alone.
I will move no further. I will remain here and die, food for the vultures, if you deny me the hospitality of your company.
It is believed that over a span of 500 years, the thugs managed to murder between 1 and 2 million travelers. Juicy stuff for Hammer, now making a name for itself in modern horror after the full-color successes of Curse of Frankenstein and Horror of Dracula. Oddly, though, Stranglers was shot in glorious black and white. This was because Hammer felt Stranglers to be more of a documentary-type film, as opposed to the colorful mythologies of the Gothic horrors. Indeed, Stranglers was directed by Terence Fisher, who had helmed those previous smash hits. But Fisher didn't care much for Stranglers of Bombay, even after the censor's scissors had their say. Fisher thought it was a crude, overly violent, and brutal picture. The funny part is, unlike the full-color Gothics, which regularly got an X rating, Stranglers actually got an A certificate, equivalent to a G in the US today. Severed hands, gouged eyes, mass murder. Bring the family, folks! And one of the most unusual aspects of the film is its musical score, and often the complete lack of it. Take this scene. Totally silent, only the lighting, performance, and mood to sear the horror home. I mean, the look in her eyes. Wow. The score itself is simple, spare, mostly percussion, and totally unique in all of James Bernard's work.
Mongosa! Mongosa! Mongosa!
Fans of Doctor Who should look out for Roger Delgado, who is now almost exclusively known as the First Master.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Moriarty, the third Dr. John Pertwee's Sherlock Holmes.
You've come here to kill me, of course, but not without considerable regret.
And then, of course, there is the Hammer glamour girl, Marie Devereaux, a.k.a. Patricia Sutcliffe, who was splashed across most of the publicity for the film. Her character is there in all the temple scenes, looking on with sadistic glee at the various atrocities taking place. But she says absolutely nothing. Some claim she was supposed to be an incarnation of Kali herself. I'll let you decide. Stranglers of Bombay was mostly trashed by the critics, but managed to eke out a decent profit. However, its reputation has only grown over the years, possibly due to the more graphic nature of its violence. That says a lot, doesn't it?
If you enjoyed this presentation, please subscribe, as I have many, many more stories of props and the tales they tell.